Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of All Access. And I was gone for about 2 weeks, so there's a lot to catch up on. The very first thing that I think at least has been occupying my mind share was the earthquake in Turkey. It's a huge tragedy, and there is nothing for us to say that can sound halfway meaningful to anybody who was affected. So I'm going to try to not say anything at all about that and let our actions speak for themselves. I am proud of what Avalanche and the Avalanche Foundation did, and that was to step in early and be a leader and example to others in the field by donating as much as we could to the relief effort. The silver lining, the one thing that makes me feel hopeful, was how our community came together to aid and help those who were affected. So thank you all from the bottom of my heart to everybody who participated in the relief efforts in any shape or form, whether that is by tweeting about it or raising awareness about it or by donating directly and anything and everything in between. So thank you so much. I've been traveling. I was in Tel Aviv for the Starkware conference. It was fantastic to see the Israeli friends. I saw so many builders there. It was amazing, and I got back feeling super energized about what is to come. So all of my Israeli friends that I recently spoke to, it was fantastic to get a chance to chat with you in person. I'm really excited. After that, I was in Florida, and there's good news on that front as well. That I will talk about later on when the time comes. But overall, there's been a lot of activity on Avalanche. So there's a lot of deployments. There's a lot of launches. BTC.B dominance is increasing. There is more Bitcoin on Avalanche now than there is Bitcoin that you can send. If you could send all of it, which you can't, but there's more Bitcoin on Avalanche than there is Bitcoin on the Lightning Network. And it travels faster and more reliably on Avalanche than it does on the Lightning Network. That's not surprising. I cautioned everybody about this a long time ago, and everything that we said has come to pass on that front. And I think these science has a way of being unstoppable, right? So you just take two things and you do a comparison, and you can see exactly which technology is better. Speaking of strictly better technologies, subnets are also taking off. There's a lot of new subnet deployments. There are new games coming online, and I'm super excited about some of the AAA games that are about to come online. And I don't want to steal from my future thunder, but I'm super excited about another trip coming up, and there might well be a version of me in some game that you can play on a blockchain of some kind or another. I'm really excited. I saw some of the other characters and watched their clips and videos. It's just amazing, and I'm so proud to have a tiny bit of an avatar. And if you want to go interact with the NPC me, then you will be able to perhaps when this thing is released. So I'm excited. Of course, on top of all this, we have the institutional subnet efforts going on. Very excited about those things coming up. And so the institutional subnet efforts, of course, are everything that any regulator might want to have, which is all of the goodness, all of the innovation of blockchains, coupled with all of the regulatory compliance that they are used to. So we can make that happen. These chains that are single asset, single chains like Bitcoin, they're not there to make that happen. That's not something they do. Multi-asset single chain systems like Ethereum, well, that chain is just for one use case. And it has only one set of rules, and those rules aren't compliant with any single legal jurisdiction. So we have that too. We have the Cchain for that. But on top of it, we are building these additional chains, additional networks, the foremost of which is the institutional subnets that we are launching. And so those are a big accomplishment, I believe, and they're going to change the way this entire space looks. And as you all know, we don't do stunts, we don't do one-time things, and so it's going to be fun to see actual real things deployed on institutional subnets. So that's sort of that's sort of a very incredibly superficial overview of some of the things that happened. And that's because I want to spare most of our time to bring on two incredible builders who've been doing something really unprecedented on top of Avalanche. I believe that they came up with a new architecture for many dApps to follow. And I believe that this architecture is incredibly compelling, and it has an amazing use case, and is clearly miles ahead in terms of technology compared to everybody else in this space. So without further ado, I'd like to bring in the two founders, the co-founders of Dexalot, Cengiz Dincoglu and Nihat Gurmen. Hi, Cengiz. Hi, Nihat.
Hi, Gün, and thanks for having us.
Hi, Gün.
Great to have you on board. So I want to just have a chat with you, like like a normal, regular fireside chat kind of a thing, to try to sort of touch upon a few things. As always, I want to touch on tech. I want to understand what it is that Dexalot does. I want the audience to figure out, okay, what is this thing? How does it work? How would it work? How would it be useful? But also, hidden, behind all of these discussions is a value alignment. What is it for? Who are the people behind it? What drives them, etc. So I hope we'll be able to tease that apart through our technical discussion today. So let's get started. So my first question is, let's just get started with how your backstory. Where did you come from? What's the path that you followed to find yourselves at the helm of a fantastic, incredibly exciting startup based in the US?
Thank you for that great introduction, Gün. My name is Cengiz Dincoglu. I worked in Wall Street for 20 years, mostly in JP Morgan. Not to show my age, actually, but I was working at the JP Morgan 60 Wall Street building, which was 5 minutes away from the Twin Towers when the September 11 attacks happened. So I lived through that firsthand. At JP Morgan, I held various positions, technology and trading as well. My team got to build a good portion of the tech side of the program trading business, where we processed about $2 billion a day in spot equities. Later on, I jumped ship to statistical arbitrage trading, where as a developer, quant trader, because that's where my heart was. I ran my own high-frequency trading strategies, a mean reversion pairs strategy. I also built an FX, high-frequency FX trading application from scratch. I helped other quants incorporate their equity futures and options trading into their models. So I was always in electronic trading all the time. My time in this prop trading desk was right after the 2008 crash. The sheer size of these events was mind-boggling, as you know. JP Morgan had just bought Bear Stearns, and we were in 270 Park Building one day, and then we moved the next day to Bear Stearns headquarters, former headquarters at 333 Madison. So this stuff, these events happening, I haven't met and heard of any bad actors in my company personally. But we always ask ourselves, how can a few bad actors, sometimes unintentionally, can get to bring down the entire company? That was mind-boggling. So tons of regulations followed after that. Delivery time spanning over multiple years from SEC and regulatory bodies. And all the banks trying to meet the same regulatory requirements, but they all had a different system. And the work was tedious, cumbersome. A few years later, some of these measures that were proposed originally, they were struck down because they were creating undue burden on the companies as well as the regulatory bodies. Only if, right, that there was a common, transparent, trustless system that everybody used and that it can be audited at will, not just by the auditors, but anybody, right? So Bitcoin took the first step, obviously. Fast forward to 2018, I always wanted to run my own business, and I didn't see myself in Wall Street another 10 years. So I quit cold turkey, moved from New York City to Florida. I focused on I have a little hobby, hydrofoil kite racing. So I did that for a while when I was building some small size applications. I even got involved with Hyperledger for a little while. That's my first time I understood the promise of the blockchain, and I fell in love with it. So one of the days, my old friend for 30 years, Nihat, called me and told me about this new blockchain, Avalanche. And he said, hey, do you want to do something together, something small? And that's how it all started.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So did you get to meet the lizard men at JPM or not? Which building did they keep them in?
No, I didn't.
I think that might be more of a Goldman thing. 44th floor. I've only gone up to the 42nd floor of Goldman, so never really met the guy who can lick his eyeballs on the 44th floor. But Nihat, how about you? So Cengiz's background is that of a techie, and is that of a Wall Street TradFi person finding his way to blockchains. How about you?
Yeah. Well, thanks for inviting us, Gün. It's really, I'm very excited to be here. So my path to blockchain was a little bit more kind of weirder actually than the Cengiz one mentioned, because I'm a chemical engineer by trade, right? So I did my BS through postdoc in that field, and my research was focused on modeling, mathematical modeling of biological systems. And for my PhD, I modeled the bubble a human body can develop after a diving trip, basically. And for postdoc, I modeled alcohol metabolism in the human body. So basically, in a kind of short way, I can calculate how long one should wait before flying after a scuba trip, or before driving after a few drinks, basically. And if you're doing both at the same time, then obviously I will double my rate.
Amazing. So this is a science. You took a science path, and you're an expert on bubbles. I think you can't find a better fit for crypto experience than this.
But then after my postdoc, then I realized I need to pay the bills and everything. So I joined the oil and gas industry, and I became a subject matter expert in production enhancement technologies. So that includes hydraulic fracturing, actually. So it's nowadays a mainstream word, but it wasn't used to be that way. But hydraulic fracturing is something I did for quite a long time. And the last few years of my oil field career, I have been looking for a new challenge. So pretty much I wanted to pick up something new that is greener, as well as personally a bit more satisfying, right? So around that time that Cengiz was referring to, 2018, 19, I'm sorry, a little bit later than that, 20, I came across the Avalanche technology and blockchain in general, right? So somehow, some of the things you wrote, as well as the general blockchain idea resonated with me. I knew then that it's a technology that's going to change the world, disrupt a lot of the things we are doing and how we are doing. And I just wanted to be part of that change, pretty much, right? So I didn't know exactly how or what, but I knew it was something big was happening and something big was coming, and I wanted to be part of that. And just like Cengiz said, I reached out to Cengiz. He's my, I don't want to give the number of years, but it's a long time friend.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. So you guys know each other from undergraduate days? Is that it? There's a diving connection or something?
Actually, he was my classmate in the preparatory school at the university. And that's how then we ended up going to the same diving club at the university. And somehow we clicked with each other, I suppose. I don't know.
You've shared an air hose. Is that right? Is it fair to say that you've shared an air hose? Okay. You've shared the same breath. Okay, how about that?
Exactly.
Okay, fantastic. So let's dive into sort of the Dexalot story, if you will. So there might be people who are watching the podcast who don't know what Dexalot is. what's the Dexalot in a nutshell, the elevator pitch for what it is, what it does?
Okay, I'll take that. And in a very succinct way, Dexalot is a non-custodial, decentralized exchange with an on-chain central limit order book. So it brings the traditional look and feel of central exchanges, but it doesn't give up on any of the inherent transparency as well as security aspects of blockchain technology. So more or less, you can say it's the best of both worlds, where you have the central exchange look and feel, but transparency and security of a blockchain.
Fantastic. So let's actually maybe expand that and go into, so there are a couple of different comparisons I want to do. And maybe the first comparison should be to what most people are familiar with. So if I were to go to Binance versus if I were to use Dexalot, what would be the differences I would notice? What makes Dexalot different from a centralized exchange like Binance, Coinbase, or God forbid, FTX?
I guess I'll take that one. So basically, not my keys, not my crypto, right? That's the bottom line. If you go to Binance or Coinbase, the custody of your funds is at the companies. Like you don't own them. And in Dexalot, we abide by the decentralized systems wallet principle, and we don't have any custody of your funds. That's the basic difference.
So what's the big deal with a custodian? I'm playing the devil's advocate here. Obviously, I know what the deal is, but let's enunciate. Why shouldn't I trust CZ or Coinbase or that other guy with the crazy hair who doesn't know how to tie his shoes? So I think at this point in time we don't need to enunciate it, but let's just do it just in case somebody links to this discussion 5 years from now. So what's the problem with custodians?
So nothing personal, really. I mean, with those names you mentioned, quite frankly, but in general, it boils down to what exactly Cengiz said. Basically, if we are taking the vision that you don't need a middleman between you and your transactions, pretty much, right? So you always hold the custody of your funds, and it's tied to your own key, and you have the ownership. And just simply the name you mentioned about like FTX, so something like that is always putting a bad light on crypto industry in general, but actually it's just a central exchange dealing with crypto funds in a non-crypto fashion, basically, right? So that's what it is.
Okay, so indeed, just for the time capsule, we're having this discussion maybe 3 months after the collapse of FTX, couple of months or maybe a couple more months after the collapse of this many centralized exchanges. I think there was Thodex in Turkey, there was Quadriga in Canada, there was all sorts of things going away to Bitcoinica, I think is the first one, or My Bitcoins, I forget the very first one of those two. Those failed. That was my early days in crypto. We were hearing about those exchange failures. Since time immemorial, if you have a middleman between you and your money, that middleman can misbehave. A lot of regulation is about constraining the middleman so you can trust what they do. And what Nihat and Cengiz have built is a non-custodial solution where there is no middleman. You don't have to trust these two fellows with anything whatsoever. You can just audit the code, or you can rely on the audits that have been provided, and they themselves hold no special power that would confer them the ability to take your coins away. So that, I think, is a huge, big difference. So let's get deeper. I think this conversation is going to get wonkier and more detailed as we go on. So next comparison is to all the other dexes that people have heard about and might be using. So Uniswap is very popular. Trader Joe's is very popular. There's a whole bunch of similar systems. So can you compare what you do to these systems?
Yes. So as you know, Trader Joe's and Uniswap, they are AMMs, and everybody's trading against the pool. And the price is defined by the pool's content and the willingness of the arbitrageurs to bring that price back to what's perceived as the market price. So you may get a sizable slippage, also called as price impact, especially in big orders. In Dexalot, you have full control on your price, absolute price, full control. Your order life cycle with zero slippage. For example, you can enter an order for $10,000 AVAX at buying at 20. You will get a bunch of partial fills. If other people are willing to sell it to you, you'll get a bunch of partial fills. And then in the middle of it, you can say, you know what? I want to cancel my order. I'm happy with my fills so far. I cancel my order and then re-enter it at 19.5 if I want to. So this type of control is the major difference. In addition, you are trading against either another individual or a market maker. And every trade that you see in Dexalot, the buyer and seller wallet addresses are tagged with the trade itself. So you know who your counterparty is as well.
Yeah, so okay, let's expand on this a little bit. So the very first one that you mentioned goes to capital efficiency, right? So if I'm a trader and I want to do a block trade, then a model like Dexalot is far better than an AMM, because the slippage that you would encounter is potentially, theoretically at least, is much lower with a central limit order book like Dexalot. It's central limit order books, for those people who don't know, are the kinds of exchanges that you might be familiar with from the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, and so on, where people come in and they say, I'd like to sell 5 X's for 3 Y's. You know, I'll give you two sheep for 5 chickens or whatnot, whatever it might be, or 1 Bitcoin for $20,000, whatever it might be. And then the exchange is facilitated at the prices specified by the buyer and seller. So the first argument is one of capital efficiency, and the second argument is maybe one of regulatory compliance and taint reduction, right? So I guess we have to be fair to the AMM model. I think one of the nice things from my perspective about the AMM model is that they create a two-sided market. There are the traders who trade against the pool, and then there are the liquidity providers who provide funds into the pool. And that's, I think, what captured everyone's imagination, and that was kind of interesting. But I think you're pointing out some of the flaws with this model, right? So the nicety of this model is I can trade against the pool at any time. The pool is not running away. It's just there. Yeah. And so that's nice. But I encounter slippage, so I pay for that convenience dearly. What else happens? If there's a bad actor in the pool, then everybody who trades against it is tainted. If there's a single North Korean in the liquidity pool, if there's any stolen funds, etc., then all of the subsequent trades, in some sense, from a regulatory perspective, are really complicated and tainted. What other problems might one face with an AMM? There's also this thing that's called impermanent loss, right? That goes back to capital efficiency.
So expanding on to what you just said, as well as what Cengiz mentioned, essentially, if you zoom out enough, DEX's AMM style, as well as the central limit order books, club style DEXs, they all try to solve the same problem, essentially enabling users to trade crypto assets with one another, right? I mean, at the user level, that's the goal. But the way AMM style DEXs and club style DEXs do that are entirely different. The underlying mechanism is very different. On an AMM, both buyers and sellers act as takers on a locked volume, and it's based on a constant product formula, right? So typically, in general, arbitrageurs, as well as they find the opportunities, and typically users have to deal with impermanent loss. And on a club style DEX like Dexalot, there is no locked volume actually. I mean, the the locked volume idea is irrelevant for the mechanics of a club, because there is just liquidity from the active orders between traders, and that's the reason why a club can provide good prices within tight spreads without relying on huge locked volumes. Basically, that's why you don't see anything related as a metric related to sectors or club style exits about volume. It's about price, spread, and liquidity. And if you get those things right, actually, the expectation is the volume just will follow from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's something that's been top of mind for me for some time. So in the old days, we used to rank all the exchanges by volume, and then when you introduce Uniswap or Trader Joe, like AMM-based systems into the mix, they seem to have large volume. But at least from my perspective, I want to see happy people using the Avalanche platform, right? And if you have a cloud model, every single trade is a trade between a buyer and a willing buyer and a willing seller, right? They wanted to meet at that price. They're happy. Both sides depart feeling great. But in the AMM model, much of the volume is stuff that the arbitrageurs are doing to bring the price back in line, to update the price against the pool. And all of those trades are actually costing the liquidity providers. So they are experiencing impermanent loss. They're experiencing loss because there is a lot of trading activity happening by the arbitrageurs. So the question to you is, I guess, have you thought about how to rank exchanges and how to capture user happiness? Because volume or total value locked, I mean, for you guys, total value locked is actually entirely the wrong metric. The higher it is, the less capital efficient the entire space is. Right? So have you thought about what metrics we should use?
So I guess the metrics that really relevant for us is the spread and the order book depth. So in other words, it's like volumes at very acceptable, almost non-slippage prices. So right now, for example, for the last two weeks, we have 5 pairs listed in Dexalot, and our spreads are 10 to 15 basis points in the majors. That's amazing. And we have decent depth, and as more people are going to be using, the depth is going to be even better and better. And that can be achieved with very little capital compared to an AMM. So from the liquidity provider's perspective, like you said, TVL is irrelevant, but also it is a big plus for them because they can enter any orders. Let's say somebody can enter an order at $15 to buy AVAX, and that order will sit there until even for months. And it will sit there without suffering any impermanent loss. And they can cancel it, or they may get filled one day if AVAX price goes down enough. So one more thing in this is if that order price is close enough to the mid price, we also have something called Dexalot Incentive Program, which is called DIP. They will even get some rewards from Dexalot automatically. So customer satisfaction from both the users and from the liquidity providers side, best prices with the enough depth and rewards. So this is kind of like a metric in total in a package.
I want to talk about the whole incentive structure in a bit. Sorry, Nihat, go ahead.
No worries. Just a quick addition to what Cengiz said. I think the key is really the user satisfaction, and it's very dear to our hearts. And the way I'm defining that one is more like, if I'm putting a marketable order, how long does it take to be executed? And it's probably a metric that's going to be around that idea. We are still trying to develop that metric ourselves, but if you have any pointers, I would be happy to hear, actually.
Yeah, I think I've been thinking about this for quite some time now. So the volume-based metrics end up capturing something unwanted in them. So that's something that we need to fix going forward. And in general, so here's another thing. I mean, this is a side rant, but now that you guys gave me the opportunity to rant a tiny bit, I find myself, unlike others, I don't think they I'm not going to name names, but let's name Tron. I don't think Justin Sun is having this problem. But when you're Avalanche and you're doing things that other people are not doing, the metrics are lagging behind you. So we have a different architecture, and DeFi Llama is having difficulty capturing all of the value on our subnets, right? That's just happening, and it's something that we just kind of have to deal with. So I find myself often having to push the rest of the space into saying things like, "Hey, Masari, hey, DeFi Llama, the thing you're computing is for a different era. It's for 2 years ago." And we find ourselves having to work with information providers. But okay, going back to our topic, if I don't mention this, I'm going to get a gazillion comments, so I have to say it, and then we can go on to the next thing that I want to talk about, which is the subnet architecture that you guys came up with, which is unique in the space, specific only to you as far as I know. So, but before I get there, I have to mention this. When we say Uniswap, what the heck are we referring to? All of these other people will say, "Hey, look, there's Uniswap V3." It blurs the distinction between old school AMMs and more concentrated liquidity. So Trader Joe's has what they call liquidity book. Again, you provide liquidity, but in a band. So what do you guys think of that? What do you guys make of that trend? What does it say to you? And what are the downsides, or what are the differences between your approach and that approach?
I mean, it sounds like at the end of the day, they are trying to become more blob-like, and they are trying to push their technology into that level, but they are lagging the central limit order book functionality at the end of the day. They're not going to be fully compliant with the real features of the club. They can get close to it, but there's still going to be an impermanent loss. There's still going to be a slippage related to that band. It's going to be less, but I don't think I don't think that's going to be a good result from their side.
Yeah,
I have a similar opinion as well. Actually, I think it all vindicates us that we are on the right path as the industry, as we evolve, basically, right? So I think it's going in the right direction. Definitely AMM, like you said originally, Gün, was pretty amazing actually, but it was a stopgap measure basically. I mean, the blockchain technology at the time, with its finality as well as speed, was not able to answer something like Dexalot at that time, right? So, and for that time, for that era, it made perfect sense. But I think we need to evolve to solutions that give better capital efficiency and better user experience in general.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've looked into using the liquidity book, and it goes counter to how I think of things, right? So I don't trade all that much, but the way I would trade anything is I have a thesis. I say something like, well, I have 2 sheep, and at the end of the day, I'd like to end up with, 10 chickens. That's sort of my mental model. I'm a sheep grower or what have you. And at the end of the day, I want something else for the thing I've got. But the liquidity provisioning on one of these, Uniswap V3 or TJLB kind of situations, it's weird, right? You say, I want to be a market maker that's 2-sided in this range. That's not how I think about it. As long as Bitcoin is between 19,000 and 21,000, I want to provide liquidity. That's bizarre. I don't know what I'm going to go home with. I want to understand that, hey, I have this, and at the end of the day, I'd like to have less of that. Whereas these LP type deals, you're essentially sitting there and saying, I believe the price will be in this range, and it requires a lot of active management. And last thing I want to do is add another burden to my day and try to sort of move my band of liquidity around as the prices move around, etc. So I think you said it best. The golden standard here is a central limit order book and these are approximations of it, which takes me to my next question. I want to get the subnets, but I need to insert one more question.
Quite frankly, like, I mean, it's going to sound a little bit geeky, but how you would calculate an integral is the trapezoidal rule. Basically, you approximate things with rectangles, basically, next to each other. And as you decrease the width of the rectangle, you would get closer and closer to the area under the curve for any curve. So essentially, it's exactly the same idea. If you take the limit, you convert that provision liquidity model into a club at the limit.
That's exactly right. And I'm not sure how much of our audience we lost by geeking out, but for those who followed, that's exactly right. So you're saying that the limit of an AMM over time is a club, something like that, if I were to dumb it down a little bit. And there you guys are. So then answer me this. Why did nobody else build a club on a chain? You know, Ethereum's been around. And in fact, there were attempts. There was the XDY, if you remember. There were others. Why did they not find traction? And why would you guys find traction, given that other people have already tried to do this? And you know, and given that you yourself are saying that this is what everybody wants, but blockchain technology can't get them there.
They didn't have Avalanche. That is in short, one sentence. They didn't have Avalanche.
I mean, exactly. Very, very simple. You know, I mean, we didn't choose Avalanche subnet technology as our home base for no reason, right? So it's exactly that, and it's giving us the ability to give that kind of a product with finality, with sub-second finality.
So let's talk about your new architecture. So you initially launched on the Cchain, kind of like those early attempts that happened on Ethereum. I believe DXDY was also launched on Ethereum main chain for a while as well. And these things, you know, the club model just doesn't work well on a blockchain, right? It's just, if you try to share it with a gazillion other applications, then it just became, the block space becomes precious. It gets consumed with all these orders and so forth. And it becomes really expensive to enter transactions. And then suddenly you find that the clubs are sparse, and nobody is paying to update the prices, et cetera, and they go into disuse. So what are you doing to fix this? What is it about the Avalanche subnet structure that allows Dexalot to be different? So
it's very simple, actually, in theory. It's extremely simple. The high-level architecture is that we are offloading the process-intensive activity that costs gas to the subnet, where the gas is 100 times cheaper. You can actually right now enter 5 orders for maybe not even a penny. That's how cheap it is to enter orders. So the market makers willingly will market make without any issues in there. So in our architecture, the entry point is Avalanche, Cchain. The users deposit to an Avalanche Cchain contract where their funds are locked. And then subsequently, within the same transaction, a generic message goes to the subnet via layer 0 generic messaging. In a way, the subnet contract, when it receives that message, it says, okay, this trader has this much 100 AVAX credits to trade with. And from that point on, you switch to the subnet from your wallet and start trading. You can perform hundreds of transactions under $1, maybe even not even 50 cents. And whenever you're willing to go back to the Cchain, the host chain, all you have to do is initiate a withdrawal from the subnet to the mainnet, and one generic message goes back to the mainnet and unlocks your fund and gives you your money, deposits your money to your wallet.
That's amazing. I want to step in here and make sure everybody understands this, because a lot of people are indoctrinated by the people who make noise on Twitter, and they say all sorts of things, and over time we've tried to correct them and so forth. But this is new, so many people have not heard of this happening before, and much credit goes to the Dexalot team for inventing this dual home structure. So essentially, Dexalot is straddling two different networks. One is the Avalanche Cchain, where the assets are kept, and the other one is their own subnet, where execution takes place securely using their own Allot gas token, right? Is that right?
Yes,
That is right.
Perfect. So you've got two chains and a single dApp that straddles both. And I haven't heard of anybody else doing this. And there's something that we've been talking about. You can have a subnet that's also a layer 2 on Ethereum. You can have a subnet that's also straddling multiple other subnets, including the Cchain. The sky is the limit with this architecture. When you are not dogmatic, like we have not been, when you are not pushing a particular architecture, when you provide raw tools for builders to take and build on, then this is the kind of thing that can come out as a result. We're not forcing anybody to have to use a hub chain, use our token, etc. And suddenly we find ourselves in this supremely nice position of being able to do everything everybody else is talking about, plus more, because we've got better primitives. So I just wanted to take that moment to just gloat a little bit, and I hope the audience will let me do this. I think we all work hard enough to be able to earn our moments of gloating about the results. So this is pretty cool. So tell us about the Allot token that drives this whole thing. So there's an Allot token. It's used for gas on the Dexalot subnet. What else is this token good for? What's it used for? How is it obtained? What's it about?
So Allot token is a fixed cap token, and originally it was created in Avalanche Cchain. So it ended up becoming the gas token of the subnet as well. But everything that is going to be used in subnet is what is transferred from the mainnet to the subnet. So it's using the same fixed cap token supply. And currently, it is used as the gas token, as you mentioned, and it's driving all the transactions in the subnet. But in the near future, when the Avalanche tooling as well as the community is ready for permissionless subnet, we are planning to take the validators with Allot as the staking token as well. So from that perspective, essentially the way AVAX behaves on Cchain is going to be exactly how Allot is going to behave on the subnet.
So I want to expand on that a tiny bit. So anytime I've been criticized for taking a little bit of time, let's just put it gently for me, taking a little bit of time to understand that there's MEV to be had anytime you have a dApp, regardless of the protocol underneath, right? So it took me a while to understand that, it's true that Avalanche is really, really fast. That reduces the MEV. It's true that it has it's leaderless, that reduces MEV, etc., etc. But there are MEV opportunities in any chain, in any system. So if you were to open up your subnet to participation, and presumably that would require staking the Allot token to participate, right?
Right.
And then suddenly it's a very interesting model. So then we would expect people to come in to hold the Allot token to participate in anything that involves MEV extraction, right?
I mean, yes, currently MEV extraction, I just want to clarify, currently MEV extraction is not possible in Dexalot subnet because we control all the validators and we don't give access to anyone. And all of our validators are equally weighted. And when we go permissionless, like you said, MEV extraction is going to be a possibility. But even with that, I want to point out something. Even with that, limit orders give you an additional level of protection against MEV. Because as a user, you still get the price that you enter. There's no slippage, like I said before. This MEV extraction becomes kind of equivalent to high frequency traders in equities business specifically, where they would try to get the first-time look to the orders using co-location servers at the exchange. And I personally didn't do it in my JP Morgan days, but I was offered co-located servers from exchanges as a paid service. So this MEV is not only for blockchain technology. It is everywhere in the traditional finance as well. You can always get an edge in any systems if you are allowed. But at least in blockchain, it is fair. Everybody has access. Anybody can be a validator. And there's transparency.
Mm-hmm. It's not just the lizardmen. That's so fantastic. So there are a bunch of other questions about the future of Dexalot, and so maybe that's so let's just kind of start asking the quick questions. How many trades are being offered right now? If I were to go to Dexalot, what's the website? If I were to go to it, what would I see? Which trades are traded? Which pairs are traded right now? And how do you see that those trading pairs evolving over time?
So the website is dexalot.com, and if you go there, you would see currently listed 5 pairs. It's going to be ALAT USDC, AWAX USDC, AWAX USDT, WETH USDC, and BTC.B USDC. Those are the 5 pairs we started with. The market orders are not enabled yet, so only you can enter limit orders on those 5 pairs. And pretty much the minimums, if people are remembering the trade minimums we had set for the Cchain, now are a lot less in the subnet, because the technology allowing us to do that. We never wanted to have those limits in the first place, and we lowered them to something really manageable, into $5 to $10 range, basically, I believe.
So the vision here is that over time, we would expect anything and everything to be traded on Dexalot?
Absolutely. So we essentially, for that one, we are open to suggestions from the community. Mm-hmm. I mean, we wanted to jumpstart the exchange with this 5, looking at the most active pairs in the Avalanche ecosystem. But from here on, we would like to hear recommendations from the community and projects, and based on that, we will be expanding that list. But it's a bit different than AMM, because there is a listing procedure on a cloud. The users cannot add the pairs themselves currently.
Right. So I wanted to ask about your plans for governance in the future, but before we get there, let's understand. So for context, how long has it been since you went live? This is a nascent system. It just was born. So Cengiz and Nihat are in some ways holding in their hands the metaphorical baby, and they're the proud parents of this newborn. So how old is this thing, the subnet?
February 1st is where we went live. We were all stressed out. It was a big day. We were very excited at the same time, because it's like a giving birth. Like, we've been working on this for so long and so hard, and finally it happened, and we're so happy. And apart from a few little glitches here and there, it was seamless, and it's been going that way, and we were happy about it. Our spreads are great. Our depth is good. We're gonna, like Nihat said, we're gonna add more pairs with project pairs or others, depending on the need. So, yeah, Nihat, do you want to add anything on that?
I just want to mention in that context that we have the DIP program as well, the Dexalot Incentive Program. I know you mentioned that, but just want to highlight that again. I mean, quite frankly, we cannot confirm or deny, obviously, that some users may be earning a healthy reward at the end of this month, but we'll see.
Right, when airdrop. Devs do something, and then when airdrop. I think right before we went public, our Discord channel was full of these questions. Devs do something, and then the when is spelled WEN for some reason. When airdrop. And so we didn't get a confirmation or a denial on the airdrop side. So what about the plans to grow the user community? Like, how do you plan to grow this thing? Like, these things live and die by liquidity and user users and so forth. How do you think that's going to play out? What are you doing to attract users?
So it's a nice chicken and egg problem, actually.
Nihat, on that. Yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me?
No, go ahead. Yeah, we want to touch base on DIP program, so that's...
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a nice chicken and egg problem, but essentially, the way we want to grow organically the user base is, again, the DIP program plays a very, very big role in that one. So
the DIP is the Dexalot incentive
program. Yes, exactly. So the DIP program actually rewards users for contributing to the order book or the health of the order book, right? So how big of the order is, how close it is to the midpoint, whether it's executed or not, all these parameters go in and determine a DIP score that eventually calculates a portion of the pie for each month, basically, right? So therefore, it encourages good behavior that will benefit everyone in terms of order book health.
So if I were to provide transactions that provide depth to the order book, that you would consider that a positive thing that's worthy of DIP. If
Absolutely.
I'm a maker, that is, it's good. If I'm
Absolutely.
a taker, it's less good. Is that right?
I mean, if you're a taker, you would be still earning rewards from the executed pair, but it's a function of how long it stays on the order book and how close it is to the midpoint as well. So if you get closer to the midpoint, there is a chance of execution, faster execution, right? So we spent quite a bit of time designing the rewards, but actual results, we didn't have a chance to analyze it ourselves, basically. Probably over time, we will be making sure it benefits the user as much as we want it to benefit.
Yeah, no, that sounds like the right set of incentives, though, right? So the closer you are to midpoint, the narrower you make the spread, the better of a human being you are, and the better experience you provide to somebody who has to be a taker. So that's really cool. Okay, and then there are a bunch of questions about, let's see, from the chat that says, is there going to be a bridge to integrate with Cchain? So I think that question was already answered. This thing straddles the Cchain and its own subnet. You don't need to bridge and take your assets to Dexalot. You just sort of go and interact with this thing through the website app.dexalot.com, and in the process, you never actually, if I understand this, there's never the shadow of an asset. There's never a wrapped asset created on the Dexalot subnet. The assets remain on the Cchain in the main contract there, and an execution of your trade happens on the subnet, but the assets never leave the main chain. So that was the genius behind their dual chain architecture. And you're not going to go find this on anyone else. This is specific to Dexalot and Avalanche, and I'm super proud of us enabling this, and of course, taking advantage of it. Go ahead.
I can add that we will implement our Avalanche warp messaging in addition to layer 0, so that's going to be even faster.
Yeah, that takes us maybe to my last question. So let me make sure that I get everything out. So what's your roadmap for the future? So you've got a great thing going right now. It's only 16 days old. And so one of the things you mentioned is you're going to be adding more and more trading pairs. But what else? What can users expect to see? What's the big vision going forward?
So on that respect, we keep referring to it as a dual chain application, right? But actually our vision is to make it multi-chain, quite frankly. But multi-chain is a word that is used a lot in the industry. Our vision is a little bit different. We are keeping our home base as the Dexalot subnet built on top of Avalanche technology, and then allowing other EVM compatible chains interact with that subnet. So that's essentially the vision we have, moving away, not away, but moving the dual chain idea to a multi-chain, truly straddling multiple chains at the same time.
So
Very
all roads will lead to Rome, which is our subnet, hopefully.
Right. Okay. And again, people are, I think they need some clarification on this. So a lot token right now is used for gas on the subnet. What else will it be useful for in the future?
As I mentioned on that, the validators will be able to stake their ALOT tokens to create permissionless validation nodes, basically. Eventually, when we go to the permissionless architecture, that's going to be the main utility outside of paying gas.
Fantastic.
Essentially participating in the security of the network.
Okay. And then there are a bunch of questions that are asking some of the things that we covered earlier on in the discussion. You know, how is this different from Binance? It's different because neither Nihat nor Cengiz are CZ. They are not custodians. They can't take your coins and run with them. So let's see, it's a non-custodial solution. There's a whole bunch of questions here that I'm finding it a little hard to read through. But maybe in our last few minutes, I think we've sort of covered everything on the techie front that I wanted to cover, and in a fair bit of detail. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, a notch up, a level up, and talk a little bit about being a founder in this new space. And you guys are not like the typical founders. You know, you're not 25. You're not digital nomads. You actually know things. I find that that's actually a huge problem in the crypto space. When you're dealing with people who don't know anything, it's really debilitating, because, you know, I find myself strapped down by scientific facts and stuff, and when the other side is not, you know, they have more tools available to them in their arguments. They can say anything, whereas I can only say things that are scientifically backed. It becomes really no. In any case, you're not digital nomads. You're not flying from conference to conference talking about, you know, the 10 lines of code you've written. You've written immense amounts of code and done something really, really novel. Tell us a little bit about being a founder in the current climate. How much fun are we having? How about that? Let's start with an easy question.
I mean, no, I'll be very, very frank, honest with my answer. And I would like to connect it to my part that I mentioned in my opening bio, basically, right? So I wanted to find a new challenge, and that is a bit greener, as well as personally more satisfying, right? So those were my personal goals when I got into this blockchain, and boy, it is fulfilled. It's just incredible way. I am very, very satisfied personally. I find it very, very joyous actually to work 16 hours a day.
And can you expand on why that is?
The thing is, I think what we are building in the space in general, as well as specifically for Dexalot, is challenging the limits of existing technologies, and it forces you to innovate, right? And then I kind of personally like it very much to be operating in that environment, because I know that I'm innovating, and frankly, as I mentioned at the beginning, when we started, Cengiz and I, we didn't have a slightest idea what we would end up with. It was, for the longest time, it was just an experiment. And probably to some extent it still is. And that innovation part and giving direction to the whole realm of possibilities people can do and create is personally very satisfying to me. That's why.
So for me,
go ahead, Cengiz.
So for me, it was like, you know, I'm a developer for years. I built 5 trading systems before. And every single time there is a satisfaction building and seeing your system at work. It's amazing. Every single time. But this is different. This is really different, because it is like my baby in a way. It's like I started it, and we started from the scratch, and we can say it is not some JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs. It's our own, and we can share it with the community as well. So it becomes a community owned project. So that gives me the additional satisfaction that gives me the energy to, like Nihat said, work 16 hours to give, okay, let me do this one last thing. And that one last thing boils, it catapults itself to another last thing, another last thing. It's just like 16 hours becomes 24 hours sometimes. So that is, in my mind, that's the best part of it. So proud of our team, the talent in our team, and that we achieved something great in our minds. And we want to go much further than this. Sky is the limit. Hopefully, like you said, people are going to start copying us, cloning us in a way, at least the architecture, the concepts, and make it even better, because it's just the beginning. Innovation is, you start with something that you have seen before. For example, I've seen Fix protocol, which is messaging between different trading systems, right? So the idea about this, subnet architecture, it came from that. It didn't become just on its own. You see something, you morph it to your needs. So other people, maybe they can morph in our ideas into their needs, and we can make it even better. So that's also another thing, innovating freely. And blockchain also gives you the additional, you don't have barriers to entry. Like in many financial systems, you cannot just write an FX trading system and say, hey, I built this FX system, you come use it. You have to go through a lot of different channels and stuff like that. But this, you can build any application, and you don't have any barriers. As long as
I think finance is all about barriers to entry. It's just rent collectors and barriers to entry is what it is, and that's one of the main things that excites many of us in this space. Oh, hang on. So you mentioned the. Go ahead.
No, one more addition actually, because I think this is a message to new people who may want to think of entering this field, right? So, finance is just one industry. It's a huge industry given, but there are so many other industries to disrupt with blockchain technology. People with technology savvy people should be looking at their current way of doing business and see how they can benefit from blockchain, taking that business to blockchain and making something better for people. Actually, that's possible for many people that we don't even think about. Some of the industries that can come to blockchain right now, I believe.
Mm-hmm. I see. So hang on, you guys mentioned your team. How big is the team? Where is it located? Where are you in your growth cycle?
We are Cengiz.
Yeah, we are still fairly small. We are not a huge company. So we have about 8 technology staff and another 6 like in the executive team, we have totals 5, and community managers and everything. When we count everyone, it's about 18, right, Nihat?
Yeah, 18, 20, something along those lines.
20. So we are still very small. But yeah, we have a big roadmap. We forgot to mention we want to do a simple swap from the Cchain using the subnet liquidity. That's one of the things that we want to deliver, as well as the multi-chain and Avalanche work messaging. So we're going to need more help, definitely, for sure.
So you're still growing. I think unexpressed in your roadmap is this final milepost, which is every single trading system is using Dexalot. Right? There is no reason why not. Absolutely no reason why not. And Binance maybe started this by starting their own blockchain, but their own trading doesn't happen on that blockchain because it can't. They just can't make that happen yet. Right. And you guys are, I think, the first that actually is trying to establish that exact foothold, trying to make that happen. So I think this is fantastic. I think we're over time a little bit. Maybe the last question for you guys is advice to young entrepreneurs, advice to new folks entering the space. What would you say to them, and what would your suggestions be for new people just getting started in the space?
I think my advice is really to be on the lookout for what they can bring from traditional technologies to blockchain. I mean, I understand not 100% everything will be better on blockchain, but there are many industries that can be disrupted even with blockchain technology, and there is enough incentives to do that.
So hang on, then let me interrupt you right there. What would you do if you couldn't do Dexalot right now? What would be the industry that you would try to disrupt? Don't say trading. Don't say, you can't. Okay. Dexalot is carved out. Everything related to exchanges is carved out. What's the next one?
Well, I can say that I copied from you. I heard that from you before some conference like carbon footprint, carbon credits. So, but
throw his idea back to Adam.
No, I want to trade carbon credits. I want to buy carbon credits, and it's just it's something I want to do, and I find myself paralyzed. I don't think anybody offers them in a meaningful way on a blockchain. I would buy them. I know people are selling what are purported to be carbon credits, but that entire thing needs to be done better.
There is an asset. For that one, we can trade it on Dexalot for sure.
I know you guys can trade it. The issue is, if anyone's listening, we need provenance information. We need the background information for every credit, because there's a lot of fraud in the carbon space, and there's a lot of people who buy out already dead factories, and then they're like, oh look, I just killed this factory, so therefore I get to earn a bunch of credit. It's just one giant scam. And it's very hard to be certain that you actually made a positive impact on the world. So if anybody wants to step in and offer digitized carbon credits that are actually trustworthy, we would be supremely interested in the Avalanche system. And I would be personally very interested, and I would personally love to help. I'm sure the Dexalot folks would love to support you as you trade them. So yeah, thanks, Cengiz. That's a good one. I've also mentioned insurance. That's one of my pet peeves.
Additionally, industry, can we broaden up a little bit and say, for example, well, anytime there are sellers and buyers in an industry, there is a possibility of implementing it on blockchain. I mean, it's like, for example, you mentioned insurance. I was thinking about the same as well. But it's not just insurance. It can go down all the way to commodities basically being sold from individual farmers or something, right? So
absolutely.
To that level even.
Absolutely. You have the right background to remember the middle pages of the Wall Street Journal, where they used to this whatever Appendix C or whatever, the one that listed all the commodity prices and the bond prices and so on. Exactly. Clearly, all of those need to be on there. And if you look at the commodities that are listed for trade, they are such a limited set. It's so tiny. It's like pork bellies, and I'm not a pig farmer. I don't know what to do. And you go through the list. There are many more kinds of farmers and people who grow things than there are commodities that are traded. So there's a lot more growth that's possible, and I'm super excited. So let's maybe on that note wrap up, because we're running 15 minutes over time. Any last words from either of you? I think this has been an incredible discussion. We started out at the highest of levels, perhaps, and dove deep down into exactly how this exciting new exchange is implemented. We popped out a little bit. We talked a little bit about plans for the future, and I hope that everybody got a sense for essentially the vision that these two highly accomplished people with careers, have in mind for the future of exchanges, for the future of trading. It's one based on transparency, it's one based on capital efficiency, and it's one based on democratization opening up the exchange platform to all participants. So, any last words, Cengiz, from you?
I would like to say thank you to Avalanche technical team while they were supporting us, especially Aaron and Patrick. We had a lot of questions in the subnet, and they always came through with the best answers. So thank you for that support.
Thank you. I'll relay it to them. We take pride in helping people who are using the Avalanche platform. This is just Ava Labs folks who are helping Cengiz with some of the questions. How about you, Nihat? Any last words?
In addition to what Cengiz said, I really would like to thank to the team we have internally, as well as the entire user community that Dexalot built. I mean, I really look at them, our extended team. They are very, very active. They give us excellent direction. So I'm very, very thankful for their presence and feeling privileged for that.
That's great to hear. As a member of your community, I noticed the same thing, that it's an engaged, tightly knit community. And, product market fit is something so crucial. And often it fails because the founders fail to evolve. Like, the market tells you where it wants to go. The community tells you where it would like to see your project go. And I think in the comments section of this chat also, we have a bunch of suggestions, additions. People are asking about perps, when perp trading will be available. People are asking all sorts of other questions. I think the answer to a lot of those is in due course of time. I hope you got a chance to get to know a little bit about the founders behind Dexalot and the sort of the 20 or so people who are making the system run. It's nascent. It's kind of like the early days of Uniswap. It's a great time to step in and check it out. Once again, the website is app.dexalot.com, and I would like to thank Cengiz and Nihat one last time for sharing their time and giving us a glimpse of their vision. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. See you next week.